Yeah, if you gotta have a house in Florida.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, somewhere
Where
else.
it's
That's why I
72
said it.
degrees.
If you have a nice,
It's a good place to spend the summer.
But a lot of those guys stay there. Victoria's there, Irvin Thomas, Scotty Bowman. Fantastic hockey player. Victoria, he lives there. Like I said, you have to have the money to travel though. February, right, April, May.
The one on the right.
I'm coming down.
What's the other?
Oh,
The one on the
Mm-hmm.
coming down this way toward Monroe. It's on the west side. Where I go, I live up this Brady's coming down to 84. Because I know
Rogers,
I might be wrong.
I expect to see him before.
There's airport road. There's airport roads on the left and they're coming down.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's before.
Ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
All right. I call this, this planning board, the Union County Planning Board, the meeting to order, the January the 6th meeting. At this time, our first action of business will be to, I need a motion to allow Cliff and Patrick to be voting members tonight.
So moved.
Have I moved? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. This point in time, you all have your agenda in front of you. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If not, do I hear that we have an approval as it stands?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All right.
I'm sorry, who made that second? I'm sorry.
We had, Russell made the second, and we'll let Patrick here make the, he made the motion, we'll let Patrick make the second.
I just want to make sure I have that.
It won't hurt your feelings.
What's that?
It won't hurt your feelings.
Oh, yeah, no.
All right. All right. And now we proceed to item 4, which is a conditional rezoning petition number 1501, Weddington Creek. Is requesting a rezoning classification from R20 residential to R8, which is conditional, containing 75.705 acres, being on the tax map number 06-003-006, located on North Carolina Highway 84 and Airport Road within Sandy Ridge Township. At this time, we will entertain the staff.
I think all of you should have a staff report on your desk. So this is our first conditional zoning case. You guys, last time you met, you had some little workshop on this, how this conditional zoning worked. This is something new to the Union County Development Ordinance. And we've had somebody that has applied for a case trying to take advantage of this. So, just to get started, this is case number CZ 2015-001, and it's just going to reference it as Weddington Creek. Again, as you stated, the proposed zoning is an R8 conditional district. They're wanting to change to that from an R20. The proposed use, as you can see, I believe you guys got a site plan in your agenda packets. 140 lot single family residential neighborhood. The existing use of the property is just this vacant wooded site. There's no structures on it, houses or anything, it's just vacant and wooded. And the applicant is Hopper Communities, for 5300 Weddington Road LLC is actually the property owner is under. submitted this application on December 9th, 2014, and the location is on the north side of Weddington Road, which is Highway 84, just west of the intersection of Airport Road. Tax map number, again, as you said, is 06003-006. And this is a location map. Property, you can see is outlined in red. This is Highway 84. And this little strip is Airport Road. And there's actually a roundabout here now. It doesn't reflect on this map. It's not barely be roundabout. So roundabout there, if you're familiar with that area. The comprehensive plan has this area designated as mixed residential. And I'll pull that up real quick so you can see it. So again, we are right in this area here. There's the Monroe Executive Airport. And we're right in this area right here. So it's right on the edge of that mixed residential. So kind of in a transition zone from that mixed residential over to the single family residential, which would be kind of across the street. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan because, and I'll get into why it's consistent just a little bit later. Basically, just a quick project summary. Again, they have requested a rezoning from R20 to R8 conditional. The subject property fronts on Weddington Road, just west of the intersection with the airport. Access to the site will be facilitated by 2 access points along Weddington Road. I think you guys can see that on the site plans that you got in your agenda packets. And actually, I've got it. I'll pull up just a clear version. You can see 2 access points. This is the main kind of access, and then this is the secondary. The site is currently undeveloped and is heavily wooded. Along the west side of the property, there's a fairly significant floodplain. This is East Fork, 12 Mile Creek. And there's also a tributary. You can't really see the mouse that well, or the cursor that well, but there's a tributary that runs through here through the woods. Ties in with East Fork, 12 Mile. Like I said, that's a fairly significant floodplain. All of that has been, it's not being developed. It's been put in. There's a riparian buffer that's been placed along the East Fork, 12 Mile Creek and the tributary, and it's also contained within the common open space of the development. The site was previously granted sketch plan approval for a 110-lot single-family residential neighborhood in September 2014. That was utilizing the old cluster provision in the old land use ordinance before we had this update. So they came in and applied for the cluster provision, went through the sketch plan process, never made it to the planning board. Got their sketch plan approval, and then decided that maybe they wanted to take a second look under the new ordinance. That cluster provision, as you're aware, as our current cluster provision does, allows lot sizes. This is an R20 district, allows those lot sizes to be reduced from 20,000 square feet down to 15, but it doesn't allow any further reduction. Any balance that's left over has to be placed in that common area. The real reason, I guess, for the rezoning, what's facilitating the need for this, is the desire to have some smaller lot sizes. It's the cluster provision, like I just said, it only allows you to drop down to a 15,000 square foot lot size. Just from talking to the developers, it seems like the market in this area really wants to see some smaller lot sizes and not that 15,000 square foot product, so they wanted to drop that lot size down. Based on the overall tract size, now, granted, there's some site constraints on this. I mean, you've got the floodplain, there's some topo issues. But if this were a flat, square piece of property, the 74 and change acres that's there would allow the development of a little over about 144 lots. So if this were a flat piece of property, they're really not requesting any more lots than they could have developed under the ordinance as it stands. Given that, some of the site constraints, with the floodplain and some topo issues, there may be a few more lots going on there. Like I said, they're asking for 140. The conceptual layout is generally consistent with the Union County Development Ordinance. I do want to point out that this is a conceptual layout. I mean, this is the way the general lot layout will be. The street layout will look like this. If the rezoning is approved, then they'll go into a subdivision review process, sketch plan, preliminary plan, and then final plat approval. There'll be a more detailed review of the subdivision components at that point. You just don't go into the detail of that at the rezoning level. Some of the features of the proposed neighborhood, again, it's a 140 lot, single family neighborhood. There'll be street trees along both sides of all internal roads. There'll be sidewalks on both sides of this, I guess from about this intersection here back toward 84. That's kind of the collector road, so there'll be street trees on both, or sidewalks on both sides of that. The rest of those are all local streets. There'll be sidewalks on one side of those. The special flood hazard area is going to be protected because of the riparian buffer and the fact that it's contained within the common area. The same as for the tributary that feeds into East 12 Mile. And also, they've provided future connectivity. This area right here where my cursor is, that's a stub street that will provide some future connectivity into these properties if they're ever developed. Again, site access, you've got the main entrance here. This is a full access movement. Right turns, left turns, every which way. This access is a right in, right out only. DOT would not allow full movement at this entrance. We do have a culvert down here for East Fork 12 Mile. But again, I think there might be some site issues there, but right in, right out only. And DOT has looked at this, and they basically are fine with the entrance, with the access point.
Lee?
Yes, sir.
Again, on the two entrances, you said they're only right in and right out?
No, this entrance here, the main entrance.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you can see my cursor there.
I do see your cursor.
That's a full movement, and that's a full movement access point.
All
So
right.
you'll be able to turn right, turn left, whichever way you want to go.
All right.
The one down here closest to the creek is a right in, right out only.
Okay. All right.
We get into the zoning, just general zoning in the area. Again, the current zoning of that tract is R20. I'm gonna zoom out here just a little bit. The majority of this area, a lot of this gray you see is Wesley Chapel. You've got this tract and these tracts that are all within Union County and south of the 84 here. Everything on the north side of 84 is either R20 or RA20. Now, there's a couple of exceptions, or one up here. This tract that I'm pointing to was rezoned by the county commissioners in, I believe, September. The date's probably wrong. But it was rezoned previously. This is the Frank Howey piece that I think it was the PUD 14 district. It had a mix of zoning districts, had a B2 component, I think a R6 and a R20 maybe? R10, that's right. Yeah, B2 and R6 and R10. So there will be at some point some commercial on this side. Those have not been established yet. It's been rezoned to a PUD 14. There was a graphic provided to you guys when you saw it, but that wasn't really part of the rezoning. That comes later. When they decide how they want to lay that out, they'll come back to you and say, this is where we want our B2, this is where we want our R6 and R10. So that site was rezoned. There's some higher density residential there and some commercial. This site, and everything on the south side of 84 this is all R40 down here. There's another exception too. These are recent, so they haven't made it onto the county's website yet. This tract here was rezoned not too long ago to R20.
Now, we approved that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we did, because that's at the turnabout was where their entrance was gonna be.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, they're gonna have an entrance off of, forgive me, I cannot remember the name of this road.
Wilhelm.
Wilhelms. One of their access points was gonna come through Wilhelms, and you're right, their second access was gonna be at the roundabout, at Airport and Airport.
We had some concerns about
Oh, and you've also got Wesley Chapel, I mentioned that a second ago, in that area. Just so you can see, I've got Wesley Chapel's, zoning map pulled in here. This yellow is all R40, so that's, low density, 1 acre lots. This orange is R20, so it's all kind of half acre, zoning out there. Just wanted to point that out since we had it. The applicant held a community meeting on December 22nd, 2014, held it at Spirit of Joy Church. The purpose of that meeting is to solicit comments and concerns from any surrounding property owners. The applicant notified neighbors, adjacent property owners by direct first-class mailing via the United States Postal Service. And I believe 4 of the adjacent property owners out of 25 who were notified attended the community meeting. And just quick review, there were no real major concerns raised during the community meeting. Some brief discussion regarding some of the lot sizes, neighborhood entrances, architectural standards, housing elevations, utilities, what the development timeline was going to be, the amenities that were going to be provided within the neighborhood, types of open space, stream buffers. There was an issue raised regarding a patio encroachment onto the subject property. So a neighbor had a patio that actually encroached onto the petition property. And what I understand, and you may want to talk to the developer about this when they get up and give their presentation, but that they say that they would work with the property owner to help him keep his property as is. So work with him somehow to make that right. The subject property, let me pull this land use map back up. So again, property is located inside this mixed residential area of the plan. However, it is located on the edge, and it's immediately adjacent to the single-family area, which is this yellow. So it's that yellow is kind of across the street. The mixed residential areas are supposed to be areas that are easily served by utilities. They're intended to accommodate a variety of housing types and will accommodate slightly higher densities than the single-family and the agricultural areas. Some commercial uses are also appropriate in these areas as well, especially to serve those higher density populations. Those neighborhoods that are in that area should have a connected street network, short block lengths, and adequate pedestrian and bicycle facilities. This proposed development consists of a medium density, single family residential pattern. It contains a sidewalk network for pedestrian usage and provides for future connectivity to adjacent properties. Staff's opinion, these aspects make it an ideal development for the transition area between the single-family residential, the single-family area, the land use plan, and the mixed residential area, because the mixed residential is really to provide for alternate housing types other than single-family, large lot residential. The mixed residential is really for a smaller lot size, single-family product, patio homes, townhomes, just an alternate type of higher density housing for increasingly diverse populations. So being that this is on the edge, this, in staff's opinion, is a good project because it does allow a little bit higher density, but it doesn't give a lot of density. So it does provide that good transition zone between what you're going to see, I guess, more in these areas that are sort of internal of that mixed residential. In addition to that above statement, the proposed rezoning helps support several of the strategies of the comprehensive plan, and I've just pulled out 2. The live component of the land use plan is 1.0, or the comprehensive plan. The proposed conditional district will offer a smaller lot, single-family residential product, and that's consistent with the live component. because it is to provide a more diverse housing type for those diverse populations. And the conserve component, 1.3, which is, this will establish some riparian buffers along East Fork Trail, 12 Mile Creek, which is one of those endangered creek, or not endangered creek, but it is a polluted creek. So that'll provide for some environmentally sensitive areas to help mitigate some of that runoff. And you have the riparian buffers, and you also have the common area around that riparian buffer. Based on those factors, staff feels that this is a reasonable request and is in the public interest because it promotes the goals and strategies of the comp plan. And we'll end it with just basically reiterating staff is of the opinion findings can be made to support the rezoning, and we recommend approval of the conditional rezoning from R20 to R8C, and incorporating all of the applicant's proposed development conditions. You can see those on the side of the site plan that you got in the package. There's a lot of conditions that the developer imposed on this.
Lee, could you go back to the site plan for the project?
I want to point out that one of the other items that makes this a good transitional product is that most of the buffer is on that side that's on the area where it's the larger lot density, which is at Wesley Chapel. And also our comp plan, that's another reason this is a good transitional property. And I also want to point out that under an R20, it would yield about 2 units to the acre, and this development is proposing actually less than 2 units to the acre. So that they're still consistent with our comp plan. While they are gaining some additional lots because they are getting some smaller lot sizes, they are providing a significant amount of open space, which of course is preventing the property from having a significant number of lots that they could have under R20.
They've got 1.9.
They've got
They're right at
1.9, so they're under 2
just under
units to
2.
the acre, even though R8 would actually allow significantly more than 2 units to the acre, they're actually going to be less than 2 units to the acre. So I just wanted to point those things out.
I'll be happy to take any questions that you have.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The report here calls for 7.33. Our agenda calls for 75.705. Should we not make that change on everybody's agenda so it matches just for record
Yes, we
purposes?
should. Okay, very sure. All right, on our agenda, on item 4, it says 75.705 acres. Applicant is stating,
What's the difference?
I think
One of those.
74.33.
One of those is from the survey that was provided by the applicant. And that's the 74 point.
33.
Which is correct?
That's the 74.33. The 75.705 that's from the tax records.
On the tax record?
So you may want to ask the question to the applicant why there's the difference, but.
Okay, it was apples and oranges and so on. Okay.
Very astute.
May I ask another question?
Oh, yes, go ahead, Lee.
Okay.
right.
You talked up here in the summary of concerns that utilities was okay at the community meeting. Living down that part, I hear so many homeowners talk about that there's poor water pressure, sewers, problems, et cetera. Is there sufficient water, or I guess it would be county water, right?
The county water and sewer.
Okay.
The previously submitted 110 lot residential development did go to Public Works, and it had favorable comments. There was capacity to serve that 110 acre or 110 lot development. Don't anticipate 30 extra lots having any major issues with the Public Works department.
Okay. If they're split level houses, or someone buys a split level house and the water is okay on the first floor, but up on the second floor, you know, there's no water pressure, it would disappoint a homeowner.
Sure.
That's the reason I ask. Okay, the second thing, down on under comprehensive plan consistency, we talk about short block lengths and adequate pedestrian and bicycle. But under adequate, we talk about pedestrian and bicycle, but what about and we've talked about this in other sessions, what about the access of emergency vehicles, whether it's fire or ambulances, through the streets?
We
Are
sent
they-
these out for comment, and again, the 110 lot development was sent to, we don't send them to the individual, fire departments, we send them to the fire marshal's office. And we had no issues from the fire marshal's office as far as the comments from the 110 lot development. Don't really anticipate those guys having a huge issue with the 30 lot increase.
So the streets will be the same width then, is what
Yeah,
we're.
these will be DOT standard streets, so they have to meet minimum requirements of North Carolina Department of Transportation.
Thank you very much, Lee. Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions for Lee? Oh, yes, go right ahead.
Just a couple,
Go ahead.
and if you stated this, my apologies. What, under the new or proposed zoning R8, is a allowable minimum lot size?
8,000 square feet is the minimum. Anticipate, and that's the real impetus behind why this rezoning was submitted. You know, under an R8 district, if it was just an open-ended R8 district, they could do a whole lot more lots than what's shown on this plan. Really, they wanted that smaller lot size product for this particular area. So that was the real reason that drove this rezoning.
While this drawing is just a conceptual drawing, does it represent the intent of the maximum number of lots?
Yes.
In other words,
Yes.
there's some here that are much larger than 8,000
Sure.
that could be reduced, and we could get another X number of lots.
So if there's any significant changes to this, I mean, what you're approving is the R8C, the R8 CZ district. So you're approving the rezoning and then this site plan that goes along with it. So if there's any significant changes to that, if they want to add lots to it, change the road network, if they want to do really anything to that, they would have to come back and either go through some kind of modification or come back and submit another rezoning application. So this is fairly locked down. The only things you might see change would be maybe the location of a stormwater pond or, you know, something like that, but nothing major as far as the number of lots or the street network or anything like that.
They can reduce the number of lots, but they can't expand the lot. So if they've indicated 140 is what they get, not 141.
And the reason behind the question is here where, I guess 110 was approved before, it's 140 today. If we go to 8,000 max, are we back at 150? Just curious as to what the intent of the maximum number of lots.
The layout you see here, if they go, I mean, like I said, they can, like Brian said, they can reduce this number and it wouldn't be a huge issue. So that, I guess they could change the lot layout somewhat at that point. And they could change the lot layout a little bit if they kept it at 140. But they can't go over 140. That's what would be
Which would
approved.
have a domino effect to water pressure, demand, and the other dominoes that fall after that.
Absolutely.
Another question real quick. I noticed, what is the zoning of the areas that this borders, that is carved out? Somewhat of a rectangle right there, and the little odd shaped there at the corner of Airport
Talking
Road.
about this piece.
That piece and the, yes.
Okay. I believe that's
Yeah, there's
I
home.
believe that's in West of Chapel. Their houses on those properties.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Let's see, that piece is kind of a greenish color. These orange pieces are 20. Not exactly sure what the green is. There's the key.
So it's not commercial, in other words?
No, it's, and I'll apologize. It looks like it's RUC. I honestly don't know what that means. That's West of Chapel zoning. I don't know what that means. There's a house on that property now.
Is that a spot zone?
What schools will these roll into?
I believe, and I think the applicant, I think it's Sun Valley Cluster, is that right?
Was this area affected by the redistricting?
It was.
It had,
It was
Weddington.
Weddington.
Obviously, this is new to us, conditional zoning. So therefore, any questions will be good questions, no matter what they are. So feel free to ask.
Basically, when we get maps from now on in front of us, they pretty well have been weeded through, and this is what we're approving.
That's correct. And what we want you to get from this is that there can be some minor changes, but nothing to the effect of additional lots or reducing buffers or any of that nature. Whatever the number of lots are that are shown, that's the number of lots that will be approved unless they decide they want to come back to this board and try to talk about more. Buffers will stay the same. But if there's a lot dimension that changes because it makes sense to change it, that's fine. That's not an issue as long as it doesn't go below the minimum. So if the minimum's 8,000 square feet, they can't go below 8,000 square feet for any lot within the development.
And Brian makes a good point in that some of the things you see on this map aren't necessarily things that are being offered up. They're requirements of the ordinance. I mean, you have to do them. So, for example, one of the things that was offered up as part of this rezoning, I mean, this is not a cluster development. The previously submitted plan was a cluster development. This is not being presented as a cluster. However, it has a fairly significant amount of open space associated with it. So that's something that wasn't really required to be done. Now, a couple of things that were required, you had to put the riparian buffers in, but they put the riparian buffers in and it's surrounded, all that's surrounded by this common area. These street trees were a requirement, sidewalks were a requirement. And then we also have a tree preservation section in the ordinance that it really applies, kind of the way that works, it's kind of hard to explain, but if you apply the building setbacks to the pre-development site, so take out all these lots, let's look at this as a vacant tract. You apply your setbacks of 40 feet in the front, 40 feet in the rear, and 12 on either side, because there are 20. Anything within that building setback is called the non-buildable area. If you disturb any tree, I believe it's 12 inches or greater diameter breast height, you cut it down during the development process, you have to replace it at 125%. So you have to plant back more tree than you cut down. Now that can be broken down in a lot of little trees, but what we're seeing most folks do is they're basically doing a tree save buffer around the entire site, which is a good thing. So you can see here, they've basically provided this tree save buffer around the whole site. Of course, you're gonna get some issues when you've got your road access points, but that's a given. You have to have access to the site. But so you're gonna have a good mature buffer around a lot of these sites, especially ones that are already heavily wooded, which this one is. So, a lot of the adjacent property owner impacts hopefully will be mitigated some by that.
What's the difference in the distance between the major entrance exit and the Will homes?
The developer might be able to provide a quicker answer than I will. I'm not sure.
You get the measure tool, can you measure on that?
Yeah, I can. There should be a mention on here there. I didn't see it. Yeah. Center line. You're talking about between the entrances into the development, right?
Right,
You're talking
right.
about he's talking about these two.
I thought you told me here in Will Hill.
He's talking about these two. You're talking about
Which?
You're talking about the subdivision entrances, the space.
Right,
between
no,
those.
subdivision entrance and the Will homes.
Oh, I'm sorry. We can do a quick, measure on here.
Because if, I wasn't at that meeting where that approval of the site plan was before, across the road where one of the entrance exits is gonna be, so I can't really say what the conceptual.
There's gonna be two entrances. One's gonna be Wilhelm's, that'll be primary, and then the secondary was gonna be at the turnabout at the airport road.
How many lots are in
It's
that?
1,015 feet from center line
It's
of
like about
Airport Road to the
115
main
feet,
entrance.
That's what I see. A little over
115 from
150.
airport to the main entrance.
Okay.
And then Wilhelm's is in between there.
And Wilhelm's is in there.
It's gotta be more.
It's gotta be more than that.
It's more than 115 feet. It's more like about, it looks like it's probably about 400.
Yeah, I'm
Somewhere.
pushing 4 plus. Yeah, because if that's 355 right there.
It's about 400 feet.
Okay.
Like I said,
And keep in mind that these entrances were already reviewed by NCDOT previously when the subdivision was going through a 110 lot development. Because this road network is very similar to what they had when they were going through the 10 lot.
Right.
So the entrances have already actually been reviewed by NCDOT. They really didn't change entrance locations.
Was the left-hand turn lane already, the widening, was that part of the initial application as well? And as far as the master or the transportation plan, I don't recall the timing of 84 and any widening due to the density or traffic. I look at Joe.
Joe, our transportation expert, I know they just finished the roundabout.
I was trying to be incognito. The state actually, in their TIP, they're showing that they're gonna fund the extension of Ray Road, I think it's FY 18-19, to 84 and widen from 84 to 12 Mile Creek in that same time frame. And there's a second project to widen 84 from 12 Mile Creek to Wesley Chapel to, I guess that's Indian Trail, Maxwell Road. That follows up about, I think, 19 and 20. So that's where it stops for now. This eventually will be widened, but it's not funded.
That gives me some idea of timing.
But it's not funded at this time.
Not funded.
All right, any further questions for Lee before we hear the applicant's petition?
Guys wish to speak? You guys?
We reserve the right to recall you as a witness, okay?
Lee, a quick comment real quick.
Yes, sir.
This is outstanding.
Appreciate that.
Thank you very much for the way you detailed this.
Very helpful.
Great job. Great job.
Appreciate that. Oh, yeah.
Thank you for coming out here this Tuesday night. My name is Bart Hopper. I'm with Hopper Communities, and we've certainly enjoyed working with Lee and Brian. I mean, the first thing we did was come in here and sit down with these guys and say, hey, here's kind of what we're looking at doing. You guys help us structure this thing to something that, your group can be, satisfied and pleased with. And that's what we think we did. The reason we went from the 110 to the 140 primarily is once we started kind of talking to our builders and potential buyers, and we had a market study done, it was kind of becoming more of a market where you didn't need as big a house as maybe you would originally thought for the bigger lots, maybe a little bit smaller lots, more single story, more active adult type product is what we were seeing. Maybe not, instead of 4,000, 5,000 square foot houses, you might be we're looking at more like 3,000, 2,500, 3,000, something like that. So, the houses would not be as big as maybe what we'd originally started looking at for that. But the infrastructure of the roads changed very little. We've still got one thing to point out, is probably we're close to 30% open space here on this site. So as these guys are coming in, we're still less than 2 units per acre, which is, we think, fairly low density. But, these big half-acre lots and everything, a lot of people don't want to get out and mow and maintain all that. Some of the buyers that we think will be, move down empty nester types that would be kind of huge. And, you know, I'd say you know, we've got probably the width of the houses would be in that 40, 50-foot range, depending on which lots and depth. So they have a lot of 2 stories as well as some single stories. We agreed, part of what we did in here on these things is sat down and said, well, what are some of the things that, you know, we need to do to specifically identify for this plan? So we, you know, these guys said, well, let's have a minimum size. So we agreed, which you wouldn't have to do under the basic zone. We agreed to a minimum 1,600 square foot for single story and 2,000 square feet minimums. These are minimums for the houses. We agreed, you know, if you had the regular zoning, you could do any kind of cheap filing you wanted. We're agreeing not to provide, you know, as a major exterior, it's not fine, the other kind of materials. So it'll be a, you know, it'll be a quality development. One another thing that we've done is we've been able to keep it kind of what we call eco-friendly and green. The overall impervious, it will still be, even, you know, it was before and it still will be now, no more than, will not exceed 24% impervious, which basically has to do with, you know, how much house, how much road, how many driveways. That all stay the same. The only thing that really changes is the footprints of the house, and well, it starts with price, and it goes to footprint, and then it goes to lot. So it's economically kind of driven, basically. But anyway, we're excited about it, and appreciate the opportunity again. If you guys, you know, hearing us out. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Hopper?
Are you going to have an HOA?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Who'll be responsible for road improvements if a pothole occurs down one of the streets?
Well, when you turn it, you either turning it over to, you know, for maintenance to the county, or your HOA is responsible. NCDOT. Yeah, that's right, NCDOT.
These will be state maintained.
Yeah,
Pardon?
state maintained. Right.
These will be state maintained streets.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay,
The
thank
state
you.
will be responsible for permanent maintenance of the streets once the subdivision
It
reaches
gets turned over.
the requirement. Our current standards for construction require that the roadway be built with 2 lifts of asphalt. The first lift of asphalt is put in, and they have to wait until they have about 75% of the lots occupied before they put the second lift of asphalt. So that would kind of allow the roadways to, I guess, take on some of that damage they may get during house construction before you put that second lift of asphalt.
So we're kind of responsible mainly, or the, you know, the community's responsible prior to that turnover.
I know you're aware of how congested this part of the county is in the towns that are around there, whether it be Weddington, Marvin area, et cetera. As you look at the access and egress there, why would you not open up that top entrance that you say will be done, or at least Lee said will be done at a later time? It seems like every development we have, there's always questions about entrances and exits.
Which one are you talking about?
Right up there at the top.
Well, that's just a connection to a vacant piece of property, so there's no.
Oh, there's no roads back up in there?
Yeah, there's no development in this.
I apologize,
But
okay.
you do bring up a good point. We do have on this site two means of egress and ingress on it, which is,
Right,
you know,
but,
really helps with the traffic as you come out to 84 where the real block is. It's not just one access point.
but I believe the one on the far left there, my left, as
My
I'm looking
left,
this
too.
way,
My
be
left.
your right, be your left. That is right only, is that right, Lee? You can only go right.
Right in, right out on this.
Right in and right out, okay. Well, you know, a lot of people are probably gonna go back, wanna go to Monroe or whatever. So, you know, I'm just asking, because, you know, you hear people all the time
It's always.
that they complain about traffic. And I know DOT says, well, it's satisfactory, but I wonder if DOT drives it as an actual, from day to day.
Well, we've done a traffic study, it's, done it coming out. We work closely also with NCDOT on these
That's not a
We
complaint.
gotta work on the, well, I know, but you do bring up a good point. We'll be doing some additional paving, a turn lane. I mean, there'll be a lot of additional things we'll be doing out there to improve that road kind of in front of our property. And I've got also with me Tom McCory, who's our engineer and land planner, and then Clay McCullough works with me and keeps me out of trouble.
I wanted, before you asked a good question, Don, and Lee can stroll in just a little bit. That, while you can't see it on here because the site plan is not on there, that entranceway that is shown, that doesn't connect anything yet, is actually on that, kind of where Lee is pointing to, maybe a little lower than that. And that actually is vacant property, and if it's ever developed, that could access actually Airport Road, because that's on the other side. So there's a good conceivable to be 3 entrances to the subdivision, and that's one of the reasons our ordinance actually calls for additional connectivity. So the hope is at some point in time that other property will develop.
Good.
You'll have another access point.
Thank you.
And that may be years to come.
Right.
Understand.
And that's a good point. Under the new ordinance, you get more connectivity than you might otherwise if we just got in under the old sign. Yeah, a lot more criteria in terms of the site. And, this is a condition. I think you're heading, just generally speaking, forget about just our site, you're heading in the right direction with the way these guys, the way you're structured. Hey, let's see the conditional plan first, RA, R20, whatever. You never get to see the site. You're pretty much approving the site plan when you approve these type deals now based on the new ordinance. I think it's, it's a good thing for control.
I think it's a good tool
Yes.
for people who are developing and for the county also, and for us.
I would concur. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Mr. Hopkins?
These guys have my phone number. Feel free to call me anytime. Again, thank y'all for your time. Okay.
Is there a right turn lane going into the main entrance?
The decel lane? I don't think there was a decel lane.
So you're just turning right off, you're just turning right off 84 right in?
Yeah, there's a left turn, but no decel lane.
A quick question. You had mentioned that there will be an HOA planned?
We'll have an HOA for the community, yes.
Okay. I didn't see anywhere on the plan where one of these lots is going to be designated for a clubhouse. Will you have a clubhouse?
Where's the site
I'm guessing if so, that's one of the 140 lots?
Yeah, it's, we'll have some walking trails throughout. I think that's more of our focus, kind of a natural type plan, to have, some more walking trails throughout the community. Maybe a playground, some open, cooking and neighborhood gatherings. We probably won't, because of the number of houses being only 140, probably won't have a pool clubhouse.
Okay.
Just kind of based on the economics, it usually we need to be up close to around 200 units.
Okay, but a park?
But we'll have, it'll be a nice, all that green space area is going to be something nice.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions?
Is there gonna be fire hydrants in this area?
Yes.
Yes, there's county water. This is county water.
Okay.
Is there anyone else that you want to speak?
These guys they know what I do, if you want to ask more detailed, specific questions. Otherwise, we don't want to hold you up any longer. Just every time you provide it.
Just the picture with the buffer.
None of the adjacent property owners?
Pardon?
None of the adjacent property owners?
Do we have any adjacent property owners here tonight? Yes, sir. Would you, I think it is permissible. Yes. Would you like to come forward and speak, or just inquisitive, or whatever?
Well, thanks for letting me say something. My name's Joe Parker, and I'm the guy that lives in that lot there, vacant 4 acres, off of 84, from Wilhelms.
Oh, okay. Right here.
And so, pardon me, I'm not familiar with protocol at this time. because we did read. But, you know, we've lived there 11 or 12 years, and we've just enjoyed those hardwoods. It's kind of been like it's our property, though it's not. It's just been great living there. And we heard that there was gonna be at first 75 lots, and the house would be like $350,000. You know, I wasn't that crazy about that because I enjoyed my woods, even though they're not mine. But I thought, well, we're getting close to downsizing. Our youngest is in college now, and we need a smaller place. And I thought, well, maybe it'll help our property value. Now it's 140. I'm not so sure now that that's going to help our property value at all. Maybe even come down, maybe be less desirable. I don't know those things. And I keep hearing about the 8,000 square foot lots, but what I see is 60 feet, 60 feet, 60 feet, 60 feet, and that's pretty tight. So depending on how you count, I've got like 11 or 12 back doors around me. So I'm not really, I would say tonight, in opposition, but I'm certainly concerned. I already have a hard time getting in and out of my driveway. Cars get pretty long sometimes when I'm trying to turn left over there. So just concerned. If there were to be any change, and anyone were to come back and try to put more houses in there, that's likely not happen. I would ask you, please consider me and not let that run. So anyway, I hope that if this is what happens, that it'll be really nice, and everybody will be happy.
It'll be still very good value on the price of the house. Honestly, it'll help the value of your house.
Well, we hope so. I thought you might want mine and level this thing out. No, we'd let you do that.
Yeah, give me a little time, I can plan that right there.
Anyway, thanks for letting me speak.
Mr. Parker, are you on septic and well by chance? Are you on?
I do have septic. There's a well there's not being used. We're on County Water. Thank you.
Thank you very much for speaking, Mr. Parker. Well, you guys, when we, for instance, I know that when I was on the special use board, y'all basically, y'all investigated to make sure everything, and y'all would have periodic, and if there was a question, y'all would make periodic inspections. Who will oversee this? To make sure, like you were talking about, of course, you riparian buffers, minimal amount of tree removal, that sort of thing. Will this be part of y'all's?
Yes. Basically, if the rezoning is approved by the Board of County Commissioners, what will happen is the next phase of this will be a sketch plan, subdivision plan that will go out to various members and staff that will review it. Planning staff will review it for general zoning requirements. We have a stormwater section that will review it. They'll look at the riparian buffers, they'll look at the floodplain, they'll look at any stormwater that's going to be proposed. DOT will look at the roads. We have an urban forester that will kind of oversee and look at the buffers around the property. And we'll look at the street trees to make sure the species selection is good for the area, good for the soil types. So yes, to answer your question, there's a lot of different hands that will be in this. On the county staff level, it'll be making sure that this is developed the right way under the board.
Right, now, will they come back with a final plat to this board for final approval, or will this conditional rezoning here be, this will be the plat that we will see and they will go forward without coming back to this board?
Right, if the conditional rezoning is approved, it'll follow the new development ordinance process, sketch plan preliminary, all the final, that'll all be handled at staff level.
And there will not be a final plat that will come back here, like we originally did before on something that wasn't rezoned.
Correct, there won't be a final, or a preliminary plat.
All right. And y'all will have to excuse us. This is our first time. And so we're asking questions too. All right? All right. Thank you.
Lee, before you sit down, the property owner that has that property there, the trees that surround that, now, they're shown there on this drawing. Will they stay there, or will they be no more?
Those trees will, let me pull out their site plan they submitted. I believe that those are all shown as a tree save area around the site. Again, the ordinance requires that trees 12 inches or greater, they're in that non-buildable area. If they're disturbed, cut down, they have to be replaced at 125%.
But the non-buildable
The
is
non-buildable
10
area,
feet.
meaning the area in that setback.
The 10
in that
feet.
pre-development setback. So if those trees are disturbed, anything that's 12 inches or greater, if there's small trees in there, things that aren't large, that aren't very mature, they can be taken down and there's no penalty. But any large tree that's taken down will have to be replaced at 125%. And the majority of the developers that have come in under the new ordinance are just basically doing a tree save area around the entire development site. Saves them development costs, because if they do that, it basically saves them the cost of having to go out and do a tree survey. They just say, we're gonna preserve everything, preserve.
Thank you.
I've got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
When we get a plat that's not got just an open piece of land, that there's no trees, there's no buffering, will there be required that there's trees planted then?
Let's say you get a rezoning, let's say it's a conditional rezoning that comes in. That would probably be something at the staff level, we would want to see some sort of buffer established. Let's not talk about this one right now.
Right.
But yeah, if there was some conditional rezoning that came in on a farm site, yeah, I think staff would probably recommend that one of the conditions be that there be some sort of buffer established around the perimeter of the development site. Now, what type of buffer that is, I don't know. It would depend on what it's next to.
Now, Russell, you bring up a good point. That's not necessarily the case on a piece of property that's already zoned R20, and they're not asking for a rezoning. All they want to do is just build on the property. There aren't really any standards to replant property that doesn't have trees on it. But if they are asking for a rezoning where they want to get something additional, they want additional density, they want something, at that point in time, it's likely that we would look at it and say, well, in these areas, we would recommend a buffer. And then, of course, that would be a negotiation between the developer and the planning board and ultimately the commissioners. But that would be something we would like to recommend.
But we are gonna be doing things now that we weren't doing last year with regard to sidewalks and curbs and things that this is part of what we're in now with the way we're doing the zoning process as of 2015.
Absolutely. And there'll be an effort for us to, we'll have the ability to ask for improvements that we couldn't ask for before.
Now, that's only if they're asking for rezoning.
That's correct.
If it's not rezoning, they're entitled by right.
To build it as it is, meeting the standards. And as long as they meet the standards and they don't have to do anything additional above and beyond.
I'm just basically asking questions so everybody will know what we're looking at in the future, because I pretty well know, but I want to make sure, because this is cool. I'm totally for what we're doing. And this development's gorgeous. I mean, this is beautiful how they've set this up. So I think this is highly neat for Union County. I think this is beautiful. I think so.
See what conditional rezoning will do.
I make a motion, we approve it.
This man's fishing to preach, I can tell. We have a motion from Mr. Wing that we do approve this as presented. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We've got a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
All right.
you know, I look at this development and I think it looks gorgeous too. I like the layout. I'm a big tree guy. You know, I've got a pair of Birkenstocks somewhere in my past. Hugged a few trees. I'm all for property rights. I'm all for developers making money. I'm all for going out there and building and creating these nice subdivisions. My issue becomes the impact that not only this subdivision has on the surrounding community, and it's not this developer's fault, and it's not the developer who came in for the other one. The problem is we're compounding our problems here in Union County without doing anything about it. You know, they had the water pressure issue. It's an ongoing issue. Everybody knows I was involved in that issue. But that's an issue that was there, and we're building a tower to resolve some of that issue. That's not going to resolve the issue, because by the time that tower gets built, we still got to build 5 more towers. My guess is pressure is just going to start ebbing and flowing all over this county, depending on the cluster of development. We've got the impact on our schools and what that does for our community, and our, you know, redistricting, and now we're going to have to shovel people out of Sun Valley to somewhere else because now Sun Valley is getting top heavy. We got the impact on our other utilities, the sewer plants and capacities and maintenance and all those things. You got an impact on the road structure. You got 400 feet between this and a new development that's going to come in and have its main access point off that Will Homes. That's right down the street from a circle, which, if I'm not mistaken, that circle was put in predominantly because of the safety issue that was coming off Airport Road. So we're just moving that safety issue down the road a bit. Airport Road's going to be good, but people coming in and out of this development and in and out of the other development are going to face the same problems that previously were on that were addressed by this circle. You know, it's not going to be solved tonight, and it's not going to be solved at our level. I think we ought to consider the fact that, you know, at some point we as a community have to stand up and, you know, again, I'm all for the developers making money. I'm all for property rights. But we have to take a stand and start looking at impact fees and start pushing for some impact fees. And it's not the right venue here to go to that. I get it. But, you know, certainly costs can be passed on. Costs are always passed on in development. You see it every day. But it's going to be this development here. Hopefully they'll have another development that comes off of the spur there. You got across the street. Wesley Chapel is building. Things are going to start moving down towards, gosh, if I had the money to invest in a college fund for my kids in Mineral Springs, I would. But, you know, I don't know how to solve it here. You can't solve it here. You know, it's certainly within the bounds. It's a nice looking development. You know, that's all I want to say on that. I guess at some point, I don't know how we get there. Perhaps a discussion with our state representatives, but somewhere somebody's got to take a stand and say, you know, we got to really move towards looking at the impact, because this is, by the time 84 gets expanded here, it's going to be 2025, you know, by the time that gets funded and built and expanded from Wesley Chapel or whatever that is, Potter to Airport Road there. And it's just filling in. I mean, on my drive home, I'm passing development upon development that's going in on the corner of Beulah Church and Potter, on the, you know, over at the corner of Antioch Church, or not Antioch Church, what is that, Waxhaw Indian Trail Road that runs up towards that circle. You got to cross Beulah Church over the top. Those corners are going to go up soon. Again, it's just all of these impacts, and then we're at the mercy of the state to get our funding. And whenever the state gets around to it, and depending on who's sitting in those seats, and depending on what area they're favoring at the time, it's going to take time to get your money to build your roads, and you're going to have to rely on it. It just seems to me that at some point someone's got to come up and you know, talk about these impact fees, because that's the best way for us as a community to manage our infrastructure. and manage our utilities and the impacts that the development does have. Again, I'm all for it, but those are just my thoughts.
Sadly, infrastructure comes last, and you have to have a need for it, sadly. And that's the way, it's sad. That's secondary. It should be first.
Well, you know, even just slush funds, you know, put them into a fund. You know, this development is certainly not going to alone pay for the widening of 84 from Potter to the airport road, but, you know, this along with the other ones in the area, you know, just think myself, or I believe that the county as a whole should get together and start pushing in direction of impact fees.
Just as a comment,
Yes, sir.
Brian, if you remember, we brought that up at the last meeting. We echoed the same sentiments that you've got. It really concerns me that it's gonna take a death of a family, a soccer mom, a child on these streets, roads, before somebody wakes up. And that's why I said, maybe DOT needs to come down and drive one of these things. Drive it 7 days a week. Drive it and see what it's like. You cannot make a decision sitting behind a desk. You gotta walk it. And I know you guys are fighting for us. There's no question in my mind. The transportation survey or program we went through the other day that you guys presented, phenomenal, great job. Really like that. But it's up here that needs to wake up and come down and say, hey, this is what's gonna happen. And, you know, it's an accident waiting to happen.
All right, any further comments? And I appreciate this, because that is our concern as citizens.
Just out of curiosity, what's the expected, I understand it's all market driven, but what's the anticipated, or what's your pro forma based on the average value of the homes that are gonna be built there?
Again, you're right, it's not definitive, but I'm gonna tell you it's somewhere in that 280,000 to 380,000 range for the housing prices. And one thing I will point back in terms of impact fees, we are paying some pretty significant water and sewer impact fees up front on the approval of this thing, or that are what, 4,000, 5,000, somewhere in there paid.
Well, those are for the taps, right?
Tap.
Taps. Yeah, anybody who builds a house has to pay a tap fee.
Yeah,
So
those,
you're
but
just
if you
saying-
go to other areas, they're not as, you've got something there that a lot of local communities don't have, just FYI. But is there any other question on the houses?
What's the anticipated timeframe on this?
Oh, timeframe, thank you. It probably would be something you'd start construction in the summer for the roads. I mean, it's a 3, 4, probably 4-year build out after that. I mean, it's a 4 to 5 year.
Based on demand?
Based on demand, right. I'm just guessing you'd have 30 or 40 houses selling a year. So, you gotta put all the roads in first, and then you've got, say 3 or 4 years of selling, 3 years hopefully, but you never know how it goes.
You've got a note on that it can be up to 4 different phases.
Yeah, I think
What is
that's for construction.
What's your initial? at least-
My initial thought is that you'd probably, you see where the creek runs through the middle of the property? You'd probably do the first phase on that, along 84 Weddington, and then once you cross over that creek, if you will, and do the second phase. So it breaks down to about right around 70 and 70, doesn't it, Tom? Pretty close to kind of right up the middle, which is nice. So theoretically, you could break it again in half and do it, littler chunks, if you will. But anyway, but we'll be doing a good-sized road improvement out front to get that turn lane in there from a, safety access perspective, and having 2 ways in and out, I think, is also very helpful. Any other questions?
One other question.
Yes, sir.
And I know we could put a limitation on this or a qualification, but I'm not gonna go that route. I'm just gonna ask from the bottom of my heart to leave as much as a tree fringe as you possibly can for Mr. Parker's land.
We absolutely will.
And I'm gonna do that just as a common
I
man,
think that's the
asking a
right thing for
common
you to
man.
do, and we'll do the best we can.
All right, thank you very much. because I know where he's at. I understand.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a second on that?
We do have a second.
Okay, didn't hear that, so I just wanted to make sure.
All right.
I got one statement before we vote.
Yes.
You know, we have taken these maps and kind of looked countywide what we think is going to be residential, what we think is going to be high density, what we think is going to be the single family homes, what we think is going to be commercial. And we've done this, right?
Yes, sir.
This fits right into that mold. Now, we can put a moratorium, this group right here can just start voting everything down. We can put a moratorium on and just say no more development, because we can stop it. And then let the county commissioners overrule us or not overrule us. Or we can let these folks do their job, which they've done. Let these developers do their job, which they've done. They brought to us with what they're asking. They're saying we think this is a go, just like what we've got here. But we can't, every time we can discuss this, we can talk about roads, we can talk about fire departments, we can talk about $25,000 impact fees, which then everybody that builds a house, you guys are gonna have to pay a $25,000, $20,000, $15,000, whatever impact fee they try to pass. Every time they try to pass it, every realtor, every builder, everybody in the state that has anything to do with construction goes against them, statewide, nationwide. But we can work on that. We can pass these, and then who's in any tax, any impact fee, any of this stuff, who loses? You know, everybody moves to a county like this that's a growing county, and they want to be the last person to move in. They don't want anybody else here. I moved here from New York, from Kansas, from there and anywhere in the world, or Charlotte to Union County to avoid taxes, better schools, all the stuff we offer. But I don't want one other person to move here. I want to be the last person that moves in. And we can be this kind of a board, or we can allow these men to do their jobs. We can ask our questions, and we can vote our hearts. I'm not saying don't do that. But when you've got a development like this that fits in just like it did when we heard these before, and they fit right into what the plan is for this county, and we say we turn it down because of what? Sun Valley's got too many kids. They're going to have too many kids whether we approve this or not. When you look at the thousands of apartments that were improved in Indian Trail, and you think this is going to change anything? Guys, like I say, I've lived this since I've been in real estate. They want to be I want to be the last guy that lives in the county, and in these impact fees, it's fine if you're not going to pay one, but when you start adding this to everybody's house, see how happy people are going to be. When I go out here and I own an acre of land out here in the county, and I want to go build my house, and I've got kids that want to build on my farm, and I got to pay a $25,000 impact fee, that's what a countywide impact fee will be. Do we want to pass this kind of stuff? We want to bring it up tonight. Let's talk about it. Or we're here for one reason, to approve this thing. If we want to talk politics, we can get involved in politics.
We don't have enough time.
Yeah.
We don't have enough time.
I don't
for
think we do
politics.
either, so.
We're all wanting to have a life after this. okay?
Yeah, I call the question. so.
All right, and, no, anything else?
I'll talk to
Sir?
Russell afterwards. We'll talk politics afterwards outside.
I would just like to say before we do vote that this conditional rezoning is a great tool, and I think this fits it perfectly. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
All right, motion passes. And I would like to comment that I think this is a great tool, and I think this is a good example of how this tool can be used. And previous to this, Mr. Hopper, we could not have done this, to be very candid with you. But I think this is utilization of property, and so I think it's a good situation for both. There will be growth. We just want it to be as reasonable as it can be.
I think these guys have set out some good area plan, and we've met with them, and they've done a wonderful job helping us, as you said, let's keep us in, just in the box that we need to be in, and that's kind of what we're here at.
Just don't forget Mr. Parker's trees, Lee. All right. Our agenda states that we have a planning staff report. Do y'all have one?
The only thing I'd like to do is introduce a brand new member to our staff. Jim, if you wouldn't step up. He's been very patient sitting back there in the back. And Jim King is a new member here. For those of you, Lee Jensen took over as Roger Horton's position, and that left Lee's position open, and so we hired Jim to come work for us. Jim has a lot of years of experience in code enforcement and zoning administration. He comes to us from the town of Matthews, so we stole him from the town of Matthews. But we're glad to have Jim here, and look forward to working with him on a lot of the projects. I just want to introduce him. He's been patient sitting back here in the back.
When do you want us to break him in?
Right now.
Come on up. Just kidding.
I really want to apologize to you. I thought you were disgruntled adjacent property owner. And I kept wondering, when's this guy going to stand up and speak? When's he going to stand up and speak? All right. Do you have any comments? And I think the word is brief here. Okay. Any gentlemen? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn, unless you have a comment.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Who made that second? Don, okay.
Multiple. Well, I'll have wait just a minute.
I have a